Self-righteous. That's the nothing personal word of the day for Monday, this first day of December 2025. Self-righteous as in the perfect adjective to describe Lane Kiffin, the new coach in Baton Rouge for LSU. Now, before you wonder why I could make the connection between Lane Kiffin, the craziest weekend in college coaching maybe ever, and the word self-righteous, here's the definition. Having or characterized by a certainty, especially an unfounded one, that is totally correct or morally superior. Seems a little harsh, doesn't it? Well, just in case you were in a food coma all weekend after Thanksgiving, or working out trying to figure out how you can make up for the 19,000 calories that you can excuse yourself eating under the theory that it's a celebration involving pilgrims, Lane Kiffin spent the weekend with his family. He spent the weekend with Pete Carroll. He spent the weekend with Nick Saban, wondering, as the Clash would say, should I stay or should I go? Now, of course, he's the coach of Ole Miss. I'm speaking prior to his decision. The current coach of Ole Miss, a team that is in the middle, well, it's more toward the end, of a fantastic year. A team with the chance, the certainty, not characterized by certainty, an absolute certainty of being in the college football playoff. But he was being wooed. He wanted to leave. He had a long-term deal, but let's not worry about that. Let's not begrudge people trying to make the most money they can. Let's not call it a mystery when people decide between jobs and there's an opportunity to make more guaranteed money per year and more years. Let's put that to the side. Lane Kiffin doing his best Carl Palooza imitation. Love you, Carl. Florida, LSU, Ole Miss. Let's send the family. We've talked about this. Let's send the family around, see what they like. Let's not talk to our daughter. She's dating an LSU player. We know where she wants to be. Let's just see which neighborhoods are better. Let's look at the school systems. Let's see about the commute to the airport and to the private FBO. Let's look at some of the NIL buckets that we'll get. Let's look at some of the other perks that we can negotiate. Let's make sure that our agent is on the case, that we are comparing every bit of an offer from A to Z. Money, years, side money, left money, right money. Of course he wasn't staying at Ole Miss. We knew that Florida was out of it. He was negotiating with LSU. He told us he did a lot of prayer, a lot of time with the family before deciding what to do. He said it was a very difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. There were meetings back and forth with the athletic director of Ole Miss because Lane Kiffin wanted to leave Ole Miss, take the money and run side by side, holding hands with Woody Allen, and then saying, by the way, I still want to coach Ole Miss because I got a chance here. The athletic director for Ole Miss, a guy named Keith Carter, who I'd never heard of before. Keith Carter looked at him and said, "What you talking about, Lane? You're not coaching this team anymore." And Lane Kiffin was upset. Lane Kiffin could not believe that he was leaving a job to get another job, to take another job of a competitor, no less, but wanted to stay and finish what he was doing. It wasn't even I have no idea what took so long. Ole Miss should have just told him to pound sand, should have basically escorted him out of the building with security. I was thinking about that, Coca. When you work, let's just pretend, at Morgan Stanley, an investment bank, and you decide you're going to go work for Goldman Sachs, an investment bank, and then you say to your managing director, listen, I'm in the middle of a big deal. There's a merger going on I've been working on for a year. Let me just finish that up. I'm laughing inside. You can't tell because I barely laugh anymore, but I'm laughing inside because it's ridiculous. The Wall Street firm would look at you and literally, this is not figuratively, literally there would be security at your desk, at your office, and you'd be escorted out of the building. Hey, I'm going to go take the manager's job. This is another popular one that made me smile. I'm going to take the manager's job of another baseball team, but there's 2 weeks left to go. What's your view if I just keep managing the team through the World Series? And you'd say, well, that makes sense. I can imagine that happening. No, you can't. Not with me in charge. I don't even know why there was a debate of any kind. And this is not to say that Lane Kiffin should not have gone to LSU. Very happy for him. Enjoy the contract. You're going to be beloved by the LSU fans. It's outstanding move for him in all sorts of ways because he preyed on it. His family was into it. But he decided on his way out the door that he would release a full statement. And the statement was staggering. After a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. I was hoping to complete a historic 6-season run with this year's team by leading Ole Miss through the playoffs, capitalizing on the team's incredible success, their commitment to finish strong, and investing everything into a playoff run with guardrails in place to protect the program in any areas of concern. So, to your agent, Lane, and to your lawyer, a quick word as you move forward, because you'll do this to LSU also, which is totally fine. When you need to negotiate a divorce or a settlement, and you lead with the fact that you're willing to talk about guardrails, it means you're on a slope where injury and death becomes a possibility. Otherwise, what do you need guardrails for? People often describe a prenup agreement, which is an agreement made between people before they get married so they can plan what it will be if they divorce. That's called a prenuptial agreement. You can have a postnuptial agreement. You get married, you have no prenuptial agreement, and then you come to an agreement about what will happen if you get a divorce. It's an agreement about what happens when a relationship ends. It's a guardrail. It's a guardrail against litigation. It's a guardrail against messiness. The Ole Miss LSU Kiffin triangle was already so messy that what kind of guardrails do you suspect that he was talking about, and why would he talk about that in a statement? So I thought it through. The guardrails he could be referring to is poaching his coaching staff. No, I thought it couldn't be that, because that would make sense. We already read this weekend how he was threatening his coaching staff. He wanted to bring them all with him, but they had to be on a plane to Baton Rouge, or they wouldn't have jobs waiting for them. Really the type of stuff that just makes you feel so good inside. So that can't be the guardrails. What about the existing players with the portal opening coming up here? We promise not to take any players. That'll be a guardrail. We'll guardrail against me trying to convince any Ole Miss recruits to go to LSU. That's a funny guardrail, isn't it, in this era of free agency, in this era of name, image, and likeness, where college players are free agents every single year, regardless of the deal they cut with their particular current college. But that's good. Maybe he agreed. I'll go to LSU, but I'm going to leave this great team, this historic team full of incredible success. Let's leave them. And then Lane Kiffin decided to call out Keith Carter unnecessarily. My request to do so, meaning Coach Ole Miss, through the playoffs, when he's not the coach of Ole Miss, was denied by Keith Carter, despite the team also asking him to allow me to keep coaching them. This is great. Thank you for involving the kids in the divorce. Very, very nice of you. Obviously, that is kids' favorite thing when their parents get divorced, to be involved, to be in the middle. It is a chef's kiss of perfect parenting. The team. I listened to the team once after firing a manager when the team cried and moaned in the middle of a season and said, please don't fire our manager. He's so good. We love him. And we gave in like a bunch of, I can't even believe that I gave in to allowing Joe Girardi to finish a season because our young players in 06 were so upset that he got fired mid-season. So we showed those young players. We kept them for the rest of the season and then fired them immediately after the season. And by the way, went on with that group of players to have a good run of seasons with Freddie. But what, you think you go to your players? Hey, Ole Miss guys, what do you think? Do you want a new coach in the CFP in the tournament, or do you want to stick with Lane? Because, Lane is very loyal to you. You're in the middle of a historic run of greatness. But then he kept going. And he said, well, I'm looking forward. This is Lane Kiffin. I'm looking forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU. Not sure what's unique about it, but I digress. I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss and will be rooting hard for a team to compete their mission. Sorry, 4869. My tears said compete, not complete. Damn it. Coca, edit that out. 4869. Here we go. Well, I'm looking forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU. I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss and will be rooting hard for the team to complete their mission and bring a championship to Oxford. Don't you just feel the music playing? Don't you just feel the excitement with Ole Miss in their clubhouse right now with their offensive coordinator, who was immediately promoted to permanent head coach because you can't screw around? It's not like they're going to defensive coordinator, darn it. God, I was coming off as so good without notes. So close, Coca. So the defensive coordinator promoted. I knew it was a coordinator. So I guess you don't do a coaching search when you know. I wonder whether Ole Miss knew that Lane was leaving and they had talked about it with their board and they had figured out what they were going to do with the athletic director. I wonder whether Keith Carter, while negotiating guardrails with Lane Kiffin, was also negotiating with the coordinator to promote the coordinator, because they were very quick not to say interim. They wanted to be like, hey, we're good here. It's sort of like marrying the first person you meet after getting divorced. Like, you just do it. You're like, oh, everything's good now. This was all planned. That's right, Peter Golding, the new coach. I got one final word on Lane Kiffin. One final one. You got to be careful when you are this self-righteous, because there is no record of any person, and I won't talk religion because I'm not in a position to talk about Jesus Christ or anybody you want to talk about, but you got to be really careful when you believe that you are on the right side of every debate or on the right side of every argument, on the right side of every moral decision. Because I've yet to meet anyone who is in business. And I, again, do not begrudge Lane Kiffin for doing it. But the style points for what he did are zero. If Lane Kiffin had just negotiated quietly, because you can do it, trust me. If you negotiate quietly and you want to go from one team to another, it's normal. It happens all the time. What we saw this weekend that was new and interesting was the mess. And the mess was totally self-inflicted. And I'm not just blaming Lane Kiffin. I also blame Ole Miss. Ole Miss, the minute they knew that they were either A, being used, or B, they were being gaslit. When you get that feeling as an employer, because you can get that feeling as an employer, you fire that employee. I don't care that you're about to be in the CFP. I don't care if you're in the middle of a game. When you know for certain that you have been cast aside, you move on. Ole Miss should have done that. Lane Kiffin brought it right to the edge. He was breaking news on the Red Zone channel, for crying out loud. You think he's going to last at LSU the whole time? Or do you think they'll be in a position to do with Lane Kiffin what they had to do with their previous coach? Remember that whole lawsuit? LSU fired their coach, and there was a question: did they terminate him for cause? Did they terminate him without cause? Kelly, you remember this? Remember the lawsuit because Kelly wants $53 million? Okay, I'll remind you. When you get fired from a job and you have a contract, the company that fires you has to pay you the rest of their contract. You can just ask Derek Jeter what that means. And the reason why you have a contract, it's called severance. It's really the only reason to have a long-term guaranteed contract. You can still get fired. You can still lose your job. You're just guaranteed a pre-negotiated, almost like a prenuptial agreement. That's all a guaranteed contract is. Whether it's for a player, for a coach, for an executive, it just specifies the amount of money that you will get should you be terminated, because the employer maintains the right at all times for termination without cause. Termination with cause is a different story. Those are the provisions in your contract which you shan't violate, because if you do, your guarantee becomes a non-guarantee. Therefore, your severance becomes a negotiation, not a certainty. When there is any question about a termination, whether it's with cause or without cause, sometimes it goes to court. And the reason it goes to court is to establish whether or not the provisions of the cause part of the contract have been violated by the employee. It's never about whether the employer violated any of the terms. It's a question of whether the employee did. Did that employee do something that would trigger guaranteed money to become non-guaranteed money? Those are very difficult lawsuits to win as an employer if there is not a very simple language in the termination language that is easy to discern by a court. So, for example, if part of your guaranteed language, your termination language is, as a baseball player, you should not play, you cannot play pickup basketball. If a player gets hurt, has a torn ACL, there's video of the player playing 5-on-5 basketball during the offseason and going down in a heap and being escorted off the court and then going into surgery, we'd all agree that playing basketball was the cause of the injury. The court will agree with the employer that has tripped the cause provision, and you can make that contract not guaranteed. Where it gets more hazy, and as an employee, you should be very careful not to sign these contracts. So you should all go look at your contracts, any employees listening to this. If there's termination language in your contract that talks about moral turpitude, that's a very common thing that employers put in. You cannot be in violation of the standards that this company holds itself to. You cannot be in violation and do an action that is considered to be an act of moral turpitude. You have to always have the company in its best interest and act in the best interest of the company. Don't sign those provisions, because that's where the arguments come. Because as a company, you could try to prove that the employee said something bad at a cocktail party, or that employee did something unsavory with someone outside of their marriage or inside their marriage, or did something almost Bauer-like. Although Bauer-like would be very easy to prove, and you'd be very easy to say that's a violation, but I think you know what I'm saying. You want things in your contract that are very specific. Kelly had very specific language in his contract, and guess what LSU did? Sort of while they were negotiating to get Lane Kiffin, they paid him his money. They agreed that they fired him without cause, and he will get all $53 million. A victory for the man. Coca, you get a victory too. I do corrections on the show. As you know, I can get coordinators wrong. I can get names wrong because I really don't have anything in front of me. No prompter, no nothing. Coca and I had a disagreement on Wednesday, before Thanksgiving. Not a disagreement, but we were talking about, if you go back to that show, we were talking about NCAA players and their eligibility to play. And Coca said there are temporary restraining orders. And I said, no, it's not a temporary restraining order. It's an injunction. And Coca was right. There are temporary restraining orders that are given to allow players to play or have players not play. Thank you, Coca, you lawyer. All right, for the Miami people listening to this, and it used to be a bigger percentage of the audience, but as we've grown, it's a smaller percentage of you. However, you must be interested if you like college football, and we've spent a bit of time on college football so far today. The Miami Hurricanes are in the middle of a Malrev. Now, I don't use nightmare that often anymore because I can tell you what nightmares are, and sports is not it, but it's important. Miami really wants to make the college football playoff. And they went ahead and did exactly what Coca told you they needed to do. They needed a statement win over a ranked opponent. They played number 22 Pittsburgh this past weekend, and they crushed 38-7. I believe, Coca, on Wednesday, you wanted like a 51-7 victory. Because remember, we had Miami minus 20 at plus 385 according to DraftKings. Not as our pick of the day. We were too wimpy. Well, they covered that line. That bet would have paid. But Miami did what they were supposed to do. Why are we talking today about the CFP and the fact that it is highly likely that Miami will not make the playoff? What happened? What happened is that all the little rules that we talk about on this show, that articles are written about how rankings are done, about who gets guaranteed spots in the playoff and who doesn't. When you read about Tony Petitti of the Big Ten, the commissioner, talking about an expanded college football playoff, but how many bids would go to his conference guaranteed. When you hear about what the power conferences want and how there has not been a full agreement to give that much power to only a few conferences, you're reminded of the rules of even this expanded CFP to 12 teams, where you've got certain conferences who get guaranteed spots if they win their conference championship, if they're higher ranked. There's a whole list of rules. The result of automatic bids, it's not dissimilar to the NCAA men's basketball tournament, where conference champions get a spot in the field of 64 plus 4. And that then there are teams on the bubble who are left off because there are non-deserving teams. And I'm not saying that the Ivy League champion should not be in the NCAA tournament. I love it that the Ivy League champion is in the NCAA tournament. But if the Ivy League champion is not ranked in the top 64, I don't quite understand it. Rewarding regular season, rewarding a championship in your conference. That's one way to do it. But if we have such a perfect formula for rankings, if we have strength of schedule, if we have who's playing who, when, who's ranked, who's not, why do you need a rule that the 5 highest ranked conference champions get automatic bids? Why do you need a rule? Now, the Power 4, you're going to say, hey, it's just the Power 4. No. It's the 5 highest ranked conference champions. Why do you need that rule? Because in theory, you could have a conference champion with a rank among the 5 highest, but that team is still ranked below Miami, who's currently number 12. Why would the rule not be a simple rankings rule? Why would the NCAA men's basketball tournament not be the top 64 teams? The computer can get you to 64 without a problem. Why is there a committee that sits around throwing darts at the head of Mario Cristobal? Why is that even a thing? Why do we allow any personal nuance into this? Why wouldn't we just make it straight up? I've been thinking so much about that as I've got so many friends who are, I don't know that many friends, but I know so many people who are Hurricanes fans, who are Hurricanes alums. And it occurred to me that people don't like nuance when they're on the wrong side of it. You love the wild card entry. You love a committee when they accept you, when they choose you, when you're at the popular table. You don't love it when you're left out, when you're walking around the middle school lunchroom trying to figure out why there's no table where you can sit alone and whether or not to sit with the jocks or the goths or all the different groups. I understand. It feels good to be included. Like the old schoolyard pick. The people who are picked last feel terribly because sometimes they're not ranked last in the skill, they're ranked last in the popularity. Can you imagine a world where right now the best teams don't get a chance to compete for the championship? I can't figure that out for the life of me. The leagues don't do it professionally. In baseball, you win your division, you're in the playoffs. The equivalent is that if a division winner would have a record that is worse than a team that finishes in third place of another division, and that division winner gets to be in the playoffs. Well, let me bring you inside the debate of why that is in Major League Baseball, and then why I don't believe college football should have it. Inside Major League Baseball, we always wanted to make sure that we would reward division winners because every team was trying to maximize local revenue. Maximizing local revenue means that you have games that matter all through the season and that you are drawing fans because your team has a chance to win the World Series. And there was a time when there was something called an unbalanced schedule, which meant that you would play teams in your division 19 or 18 times out of 162 games. And then you would play teams in your league 6 times. And then in the National League versus the American League, you'd either not play or sometimes play only 3 games. Major League Baseball switched. It's now a balanced schedule. You play your division fewer games, like 12. You play every other team in baseball, either home or away, guaranteed throughout the season. My call, when this was happening, was with a balanced schedule, why do we need to reward division winners? Why do there need to be divisions at all? Let's go all the way and make it a fully balanced schedule. Get rid of all divisions, have 30 teams, and the top 12 teams make it to the playoffs. Or the top 14 teams. I wanted as many playoff teams as possible, but whatever number you want. What would be the reason not to have it like so many soccer leagues have, just a table? And the top teams of a table make it through. I've never gotten an answer other than to protect the sanctity of the competition of the regular season. Is that the case in college football, even though there are multiple conference games? If we allowed teams to just schedule against anyone they wanted, but you were subject to a strength of schedule review, you are subject to playing too many unranked teams, and therefore your wins don't get you ranked. You go into that with your eyes wide open. It's your total choice of what you want to do. And then you take the top 12 ranked teams and they get to play for the championship. I'm going to keep fighting for that because I believe that is totally the right thing to do. Will it end up happening? I think it's too radical for people, and I don't know why. Side note to my friend Manny Diaz, the head coach of Duke, who is right now People say he's my doppelganger, but certainly not these days. I do wonder how hard it is for a coach of a 7-5 team who is in the ACC championship game, who has to defend the merits of having a team in the ACC championship game who's 7-5 because of asinine tie-breaking rules. Keep in mind that Duke only gets to play in the ACC championship because they won a tiebreaker. It was the fifth tiebreaker because there were so many teams tied at 6-2, because Duke's other ACC opponents had the best combined record in league games. I mean, talk about a tiebreaker because you wore a red tie on the second Tuesday of September. Congrats. So Manny Diaz is forced to now defend his position as being in the championship game. And the irony is, I don't even think it matters, because Duke winning the ACC championship does not guarantee them a spot in the CFP because of the rule of the 5 highest ranked conference champions, and Duke is not ranked. It's all a mess. College football has become a joke. Maybe college football in itself is self-righteous, but it's such a business. As John Skipper likes to tell me, college football, David, is the second most important sport behind pro football. Forget basketball, certainly forget baseball. I can't remember what hockey is, but college football is where it's at. Well, if that's true, then you're just screwing with the golden goose. And I think we know what happens when you screw a golden goose. It becomes bronze quickly. Let's do a review, Coco, please. Well, I did it. I told you I would, Coca. I watched Frankenstein this weekend. It's really good. Let's just start with the fact that as a movie and as an interpretation of the story of Frankenstein, for those of you who don't know, Frankenstein's not the monster. Frankenstein's the doctor. Dr. Frankenstein creates a monster. The monster is played, in this case, by Jacob Elordi. Jacob Elordi, you know him. You've seen him. Jacob Elordi is going to get nominated for a supporting actor at the Oscars. Guaranteed nomination. Oscar Isaac's performance as the tortured doctor creating life. There's some temporal issues with the movie in that electricity is used in a way that reminded me of David Bowie in the Illusionist. Or was it The Prestige? It was The Prestige. David Bowie was in The Prestige. But I went past that. Guillermo del Toro, and if you haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth, go watch that first. The brilliance of his filmmaking. I also love The Shape of Water, but that's just me. Many people did not. But this movie, Frankenstein, and the performance by Mia Goth, who is Shia LaBeouf's significant other, her performance, staggering. So good. Not nomination worthy, but still very good. This movie on Netflix, you watch in the comfort of your own home. I didn't stand up one time. It's a zero phone check movie because you can't believe when the story starts on this ship, when the story ends on a ship, and you're looking at this ship, and you're looking at the set, you're looking at the acting, you're looking at the way you feel during the course of the story. I'm all in. I'm all in, Coca. It's called Frankenstein. You should watch it. It's going to get nominated for Best Picture, by the way. I'm watching another movie before Wednesday's show, also on Netflix, so it's free with your subscription, with Joel Edgerton, called Train Dreams. I also believe, according to rumors, which you know I'll listen to, that Train Dreams has a lot of Oscar nominations coming its way. So I'm going to watch that by Wednesday because it's Oscar time. Nothing personal pick of the day. Tell you a story about my weekend. So I had Thanksgiving with my family, my immediate family, which is 3 children and a son-in-law and the mother of the children, my ex. We had Thanksgiving as a group, as a family, as we're trying to navigate the unnavigable, trying to figure out what we're all doing and trying to do anything we can to help our daughter, their sister. And my daughter does not like football. So the question was, are we going to watch football? Because to me, it doesn't matter whether you like football. It's Thanksgiving. You watch football. And I realized that that was the sports in me. And we haven't gotten the audience numbers yet. And I still have an open wait to see that it will be the highest watched regular season game. I have a wait to see that 90 million people would have watched the Packers, Lions, and then the Chiefs, Cowboys. And so I want to tell you what happened during our Thanksgiving, because you have the pre where you just have some snacks and then you play some games and you're just finding ways to coexist and try to find a moment of happiness if you possibly can. And the way we did it was that I had an iPad that was showing the football at the start, like during the Packers-Lions game. But I was distracted by things you're doing. You're trying to spend time with your children, and you're trying to just sort of work through your feelings of everything. But I was so unsatisfied with the iPad that I managed to negotiate the background game where we could put the main TV on the football game, of course, silent. Not going to have any of the analysis because our daughter doesn't like football. So, fine. It then occurred to me that getting to 90 million people is super easy, because if I'm in a house under these circumstances, which are the direst of circumstances, which are just sad, upsetting, make you cry every day, and still we're going to have football on in the background on the main TV, then what household would not have football on? I was thinking about that while watching. I was watching the Packers and the Lions. Remember last year when the Lions and Dan Campbell were the belle of the ball? The Lions were the number one seed, I think, in the NFC. I think they lost like 2 games. They and Minnesota had these great years last year. Don't even get me started on Minnesota. They're finished, obviously. Their quarterback was so good yesterday. No touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 32 rating. But the Lions were going to win a Super Bowl, and Dan Campbell with his knee knocking and just the coach of the year, and the coach, everybody loved him. Well, the Lions they didn't succeed last year. And this year, they're far more ordinary. So the Packers getting 2.5 to me was easy, and turned out to be so. The Packers won that game 31-24. The Packers, who have never looked back on Aaron Rodgers, we'll get to him. The Packers, who traded for Micah Parsons, who were Super Bowl bound when the season first started, then have had some moments of problems. It's a long season. They look great. That was a good win. But the other game Thursday is what really drew my attention as I watched the Chiefs not cover the Cowboys, as I watched Jerry Jones celebrate a Cowboys win, which was a nothing personal pick of the day loss, as I watched Patrick Mahomes try to be Patrick Mahomes and realize that in order to be Patrick Mahomes, you can scramble, you can use your legs, you can throw across your body, you can do things that other quarterbacks simply are not doing. But then the ball leaves your hand. And if you don't have people to catch the ball, then it doesn't matter who throws the ball. When you don't have a team, and we're seeing this more and more in the NFL, we're seeing more and more that complete teams are harder and harder to build with the salary cap allocation going so heavily in the direction of one player. We're seeing the premium on drafting, the premium on coaching, the premium in the NFL of team. The Chiefs just don't have that kind of team anymore. And while we look back and realize that they won the Super Bowl and they were going for 3 in a row last year when the Eagles beat them, that they are a dynasty, that they are one of the best teams ever assembled, it's not that anymore. It's like looking at the Lakers and saying, wow, it's still LeBron's team. LeBron's on the team. It's not his team anymore. It's realizing that age. It's realizing that money. It's realizing that time will change whatever perspective you currently have. Frankly, Coca, it's what gets me through the day. The possibility that time has a chance to allow for healing or to allow for understanding or to allow for acceptance. The chance, though I don't feel it today, that time will allow for the stomachache to go away. In most situations, time is the ultimate elixir because it doesn't lose. We talk about it with Father Time. Time of a club, of a window of competing, of a championship window, of a dynasty. All of those things end, and the Chiefs are looking at it. We had another pick with Sunday. We had the Bills yesterday. I want to talk about the Bills and Steelers in a minute, but we won that one, so we are 146 and 149. Tonight, I'm going with Jackson Dart in an ode to my friend Will, who is in New England, going to watch the Pats play the Giants. The Pats, who are the top seed right now in the AFC. The Pats, who are giving 7.5 points, but I think people are downplaying the great Jackson Dart. So we're taking the Giants plus 7.5 against the Patriots tonight. Let's talk about those Steelers who got manhandled by the Bills. Aaron Rodgers looks like he went half around with Mike Tyson. Aaron Rodgers, the entire Steelers team. Mike Tomlin looked as old as his team. Watching Hayward taunt Josh Allen, watching the unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, watching the lack of ability to stop the Bills, watching Aaron Rodgers as the maybe ultimate example, though there are a lot of old players, aren't there, Coca, who just try to hang on. You have to rip the uniform off them, and their career ends in a sputter. We always wonder, like, why aren't there more Jimmy Browns? Why aren't there more people who retire at the height of their career? And the answer is when you have what's inside you to be as competitive as you need to be great in anything, that competitive nature that you have also has a blinding effect. It blinds you into believing that you are what you were. It tricks your body into thinking that it can do things it can no longer do. Because the mind, short of being sick, the mind will always be behind the body. That's how it's supposed to be, at least. The mind is always not going to be the place that will tell the body, that's it, you're good. Think about you if you're a Sunday rec player. You like playing a little pickup. You go play pickleball. You go play tennis. You go play basketball. You go running. Your mind tells you you're good. And then you wake up the next morning or you pull a hammy and you say, wait a minute, my body, it's not working for me. That's where Aaron Rodgers is. Aaron Rodgers believes he can still be a competitive quarterback in the National Football League. He can't. He is not one of the top 32 people who should be leading a team. Russell Wilson went through this, where he kept getting starting jobs, and then all of a sudden he'd be benched because Russell Wilson was not Russell Wilson anymore. Aaron Rodgers, instead of being a man, instead of just acknowledging, you know what? I'm not playing well. You know what? I'm not playing well because I'm not who I used to be. You know what? I'm not playing well, and I'm not who I used to be, and therefore I am not the right person to lead a team to a win. A very logical step of thought process. Nope, that's not what Aaron Rodgers did. After losing to the Bills, he went crazy. He went cuckoo. He started calling out all of his wide receivers. He actually said to the media, when there's film sessions, everybody shows up. When I check to a route, you do the right route. We have our meetings every week. We have other opportunities outside the facility, and I look forward to seeing all the boys there. Does that sound familiar to you? Have you heard of another player calling out his team or a coach calling out his team for players missing meetings or for players not pulling the same direction? How did that end? Do you think what's going on is the wide receivers are running the wrong routes because they don't know the playbook? The wide receivers are not going to the pre-game meetings, and the coaching staff, Mike Tomlin, the great Hall of Famer, Mike Tomlin, doesn't insist on players showing up to do their job? You think the Steelers are in a position where they're coasting given the season they're having? I'm just not sure I understand what Aaron Rodgers was doing, why he felt the need to call out his wide receivers. As a teammate, we would, once in a while as a front office, go to a teammate and say, hey, just do us a solid. When you meet the media, just make sure you signal that you're looking for a better effort from your team. Make sure you signal that you would like players, your teammates, to perform better or to respect the game or to run out ground balls or whatever happens during a particular game. There are moments we will go to a player to get a message to other players. But it's rare, few and far between. There is no chance, toilet pants, that Mike Tomlin went to Aaron Rodgers after that game and said, Aaron, do me a solid. Go get the wide receivers and put them on blast. Go talk to the media and let the world know that we are dysfunctional without players doing their jobs. Does that sound like Mike Tomlin to you? Is there any scenario under which that Aaron Rodgers would be the mouthpiece to a message to the rest of the team? You've got to choose your players wisely when you do that. You have to. And guess what? Aaron Rodgers is not the right medium to get a message out to the rest of the team. That would require that Aaron Rodgers is some sort of leader. When there were players on the Steelers asked about Rodgers' comments, one of them, Hayward, I believe, Coca, said, hey, ask Aaron. Little hint. When you go to as a member of the media and you go to a player or a coach and the response given to you is, hey, ask the guy, that means there's an issue going on in the clubhouse. Because if there is no issue, when you ask someone about someone else, they answer and they say, listen, this isn't about the wide receivers. This isn't about the defense. This isn't about Aaron Rodgers. This is about our team coming together and playing to the best of our ability. That's the comment and the quote that you would hear from a team that's together without dysfunction. When you've got a team that has a divisive member in the clubhouse, which we told you Aaron Rodgers would be, you get an answer of, hey, ask him. In my experience, and it's happened to me both ways, when you get an ask him response, your season is sunk like a battleship. The Pittsburgh Steelers are finished. It is true they're 6-6. It is true they could still win the AFC North, except they won't. I promise. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, we've got way more. We got a whole nother hour, baby, and we haven't even said Scott Boris's name yet. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Hour 2. Quite excited right now. Thanksgiving's weird for me. This year was even stranger. But you don't do a show from Wednesday to Monday, and you're thinking to yourself, are people still going to care? I'm having beard issues right now. If you're watching on DraftKings Network, thank you. I promised I would not shave my beard. If you're live on YouTube, hit subscribe. Thank you for watching. I haven't shaved since September 7th. My daughter still likes playing with my beard, but it's so long that I don't know how people do it. If you have a beard, get to me at davidsamsonpodcast.com, or you can get to me at David P. Samson on Twitter. How do you deal with the perception of food or other such material that is in the hair that is in your mouth? And you're going to say trim, but I'm not trimming. So then what's the opportunity? So I was just worried that something I needed to cover you'd forget about. Have you already forgotten what the Toronto Blue Jays did last week? The excitement in the hot stove. Dylan Cease, the pitcher, 7 years, $210 million to go to the Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays, who won the American League pennant. The Blue Jays, who took the Dodgers to 7 games only a month and a half ago. They start the offseason by addressing an obvious need, because when you watch this October and what the Dodgers did to the Brewers, their starting pitching, the load management they used, the health they had at the end, the dominance, it was very obvious. Pitching wins. You know that because you love and know Nothing Personal. If you have good starting pitching that happens to perform over a 4 to 7 game stretch in the playoffs that's dominant, you win. If you have mediocre starting pitching that performs in a dominant way, you beat a better team. If you are a better team with dominant starting pitching that performs in a mediocre way or poorly, you will not win. It's really quite simple. When you are Toronto, I want to take you inside the negotiation that just happened. When you've got Rodgers as a company that owns the Blue Jays, they are the only team in Canada. They've got a huge, huge business outside of baseball. Baseball is a part of what they do, but it's small. Losing 10, 20, 30, $40 million. Well, I would tell you that is unacceptable. If I'm commissioner of baseball, I don't want any teams losing any money. I am reticent to have any owner, Steve Cohn, any owner, Rodgers Communication, any owner who is fine with losing money. Don't give me the argument, please, that they make it up when they sell the team. That is an argument that is promulgated by people in the media who don't know anything about business. Do not give me that argument. There is no reason to run a business at a loss. None. You don't run your business that way. You don't run your house that way. You don't run a team that way. The fear is that if you can run your business at a loss because you don't care, that's what we call, colloquially, FU money. When you are a corporation that is family held, when you are a business that has the ability to have that FU money, it can crush an economic system, whatever the business is. In this case, it's baseball. I am not sounding the alarms. I'm not going back to my days saying this contract is the end of the world as we know it. I'm not telling you that Dylan Cease being overpaid by getting $30 million a year for 7 years is going to be what will be the final blow to Major League Baseball that will cause a work stoppage, a strike, a lockout. I'm not going there at all. I'm going a little separate, which is the danger. The danger when you combine an owner who doesn't care with an agent who doesn't care, you end up with a contract that isn't good. When you have enough contracts that aren't good, no, I'm wrong. This has been going on for 26 years. It's been going on since I first got into baseball. There have been bad contracts signed every single year. There's been the commissioner's office telling you at every owner's meeting, you do not sign a pitcher to a 7-year contract. Hard stop. There may be a couple that work, Scherzer, Verlander, original ones. But generally, like specifically, you will be unhappy that you signed that contract. You signing that contract are hurting the market for your partners in the room. It was always a terrible argument by the commissioner, Bud Selig, or Rob Manfred, appealing to the sense of fraternity within the ownership room, appealing to the sense of partnership in that room. There are 30 owners in Major League Baseball that look to their left, they look to their right, they look in front, they look and gander over their shoulders at the team sitting behind them in the owners' meeting, and not one of them says, I want to act in the best interest of my partner here to my left. There is not one baseball team that doesn't act in self-interest. There are teams that do certain things that can be disguised as for the good of the game. But even I, did not make one decision in 18 years running a team which said, ooh, not good for the team, but good for the game. Last week, I told you about a decision I had to make with a grievance. I told you that we had to sign a player to a contract in order to take one for the team. Please don't misunderstand what that was. And I told you last week when I told you the story. That wasn't really about taking one for the team or doing something for the industry. That was because we needed something from Major League Baseball. We needed something. People act in their self-interest. In a negotiation, you're best to know what the other side's self-interest is, or else you're not going to succeed in the negotiation. The Toronto Blue Jays are under the impression that having a starting pitcher, having depth in their rotation will be the difference maker, and I can tell you, I can promise you, that the entire rotation of the Blue Jays as laid out right now, Gausman into Dylan Cease, followed by Savage. Don't forget, we got Justin Bieber, who did his player option for $16 million. He's not going to be available. There's no way. Berrios. What great depth. You're going to need 10 starting pitchers at least. So my complaint is not that you're building depth. It's the price that you pay for that depth. So when Scott Boras has a list of free agents, and remember what he said about Dylan. Remember at the GM meetings, he said, unlike the other Dylan, he is exclusively electric. Talking about Dylan Cease. It's absurd, obviously. But what Boras does, he takes his free agent players, and he still has a bunch left, Bregman, etc. And he makes a list. And he makes a list according to team, age of owner, where the team finished in the standings last season, what his view is of the team's need, and the final column is, how big an influence do I have over that owner? How good am I at convincing that owner that I've got the final piece? Because owners have a hard time overpaying when they're 5 pieces away. But if you can convince an owner, hey, you're 1 piece away. If you sign this player, you are right there. You will get those final 6 outs. You will be the World Series champion. And you, Eddie Rodgers, you're going to be the national hero in Canada. You're going to get to do parades from the shores of Quebec to the beauty of Vancouver. You are going to own the day. And Scott Boras will also tell you the benefits it will have to your other business. I always liked when he would say, do you know what this will do to the price of a Picasso? What a joke. I'm sure that Scott Boras told the Blue Jays that Dylan Cease will have a positive impact on the stock of Rodgers Communication. It will help with towers across the land. Dylan Cease is a middle-of-the-rotation guy, folks. Giving Dylan Cease $30 million, that can't be where we want the market to be if you are within baseball. It doesn't matter whether you're the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, or the Marlins or the Pirates. What exactly is Paul Skeens worth if Dylan Cease is getting $30 million a year? How do you not argue that Paul Skeens is above Ohtani? How do you not argue that he's above Soto? How do you not argue that he's above Scherzer? Scherzer, who wants to run it back with the Blue Jays. Scherzer, who as an older, ineffective guy, was making $40+ million. Paul Skeens has to be at 50 or 60 a year. So when you make the argument, which Boras did, hey, you're paying a guy over $40 million already, $30 million for Dylan Cease, that is totally reasonable. This is a great deal for you, Eddie. And at $30 million over 2 or 3 years, we're not having this segment. We're not having this discussion. Dylan Cease is not making $30 million. Stop with that. When you get $210 million over 7, Cease, who will be pitching at 30 years old, you think he's a $30 million pitcher until he's 37? You think he's that guy? Just because he's pitched more than 165 innings in each of the past 5 seasons, that somehow is indicative of that he'll pitch 165, which, by the way, is not 200, but that means he'll pitch 165 innings over the next 5? I really don't know. I used to be able to know, Coca. I used to be able to say with certainty that I could do a wait to see 5 years out. I'm just not sure I can do that anymore. But I can't make it an official wait to see, Coca. But go back, because in this age of technology, you will be able to hear my voice forever. Sorry, folks. There's no Arnold Schwarzenegger-ing me. I shan't be erased. So it's not an official wait to see. Dylan Cease will not pitch 165 innings per year for the next 5 years. NGTH. It is not going to happen. You've got to take the $210 million that you have guaranteed. And believe me, Scott Boras, when he negotiates the termination clauses, believe me, Dylan Cease will receive $210 million. You have to take it over 4 years at most. $200 million over 4 years is $50 million. $210 million over 4 years is a bit more. Just call it 52 and change. Is there anyone out there who has him as a $52 million pitcher? Anyone? He's simply not. It was the perfect storm where Scott Boras found the perfect prey, like lions in the jungle. I wonder whether he goes to his teams, if Boras makes the same list. I actually never asked him this. I'm going to ask him right now because I know he's got people listen to the show. Hey, if you could ask Mr. Boras a quick question. Does he apologize to teams ever when he lies to them? When he convinces octogenarian owners that a player is the best last piece? Does he then go when that player stinks and that player doesn't perform and that player's overpaid? Does he ever say, oh man, I got that one wrong? I was thinking about that because of Anthony Rendon. Anthony Rendon is an Anaheim Angel of Los Angeles. When Anthony Rendon won the World Series in 2019 with the Washington Nationals, he was an well above average third baseman, well above average middle of the lineup hitter. When the Los Angeles Angels signed him to that 7-year, $245 million contract, the Angels were lauded. They got the best position player on the market to combine with Ohtani and Pujols to make the Anaheim Angels the belle of Los Angeles. Well, Anthony Rendon's time with the Angels is mercifully coming to an end. He's got 1 more year left on that deal. He's only played 257 games with the Angels out of a possible 1,032. Anthony Rendon is still owed $38.5 million this coming season. And this weekend, word came out of a buyout, of a negotiation to get Anthony Rendon out. There is a misunderstanding about buyouts, so I wanted to explain. When a player is guaranteed money, in the first hour of the show, we talked about guarantee, what it means. Anthony Rendon is owed $38.5 million this year. When you read about a buyout, it doesn't mean that he is going to be released by the Angels and not paid his $38.5 million. Scott Boras and the Players Union never, ever allow a player to give back guaranteed money. The player has to get something in return for any right that they give up. Any contractual obligation of a team must be satisfied. The union will not have it any other way. To say nothing that we're in a negotiating year, but even in the middle of a CBA, they would not allow any right to be diminished. The only solution for Artie Moreno and the Angels is to outright release him. Having Anthony Rendon on your 40-man roster, having him on your 60-day injured list, and therefore not on your roster, but still a part of the organization, there is no reason for it anymore. I would have designated Rendon for assignment 2 years ago. I understand the pain that an owner feels about designating a player and still owing that player $100 million or $50 million or $38.5 million. But they didn't. They kept him around. Why is there talk of a buyout now with 1 year left? Is that because all of a sudden Moreno is willing to release a player and pay him the $38.5 million? Because you don't need to do a buyout if you just release the player. But instead, the Angels are looking for a favor. The Angels are looking to negotiate with Anthony Rendon in order to spread, and this has not been written that I've seen, but I'm just giving you from my experience what buyout negotiations are. I want you off the roster. Well, I can do that. I'm in charge of that. I don't want to give you $38.5 million to count toward my luxury tax payroll. Well, I'm not hitting the luxury tax threshold, so that doesn't matter to me. But if you're a team that is going up against the luxury tax threshold in baseball, it's why you see deferrals. It's why you see discount rates that are argued about between union and commissioners. It's because salaries are calculated according to the present value of the contract, which is why people misunderstood the Ohtani deal. People thought the Dodgers, by paying Ohtani only $2 million and deferring $68 million, that they were only having a $2 million hit to their luxury tax payroll. That's not accurate. You take the $700 million paid over 20 years, you discount it, you come to an agreement with the union, call it $450 million over 10 years, you straight line amortize it, that's a $45 million hit per year to your luxury tax. And the reason you do that is you don't want teams to be able to manipulate the luxury tax number by using their financial might to further hurt other teams in the league. Having the Dodgers only have $2 million count toward Ohtani, that would be unfair. So everyone understands what the rules are. So Anthony Rendon, how do you change that? Well, the present value of his contract paid over 6 months, which is when players get paid from April to September, is the $38.5 million deal. What if you spread that? What if you pay Rendon over 5 years instead of over 1 year? We've seen it in the NBA where you take a player, you release the player, and then you spread out the remaining money and the impact it has on the salary cap. Baseball's the same thing, even though there's no salary cap. So what is being negotiated with the Angels is not whether Rendon will get fewer dollars than $38.5 million, because he won't. It's whether or not they can spread that to make the hit against the team more palatable, because he's been such a waste for the entire 7 years. He's been a drag on the payroll, a drag on the competitiveness of his team, which is the longest and has the longest drought in all of baseball. I just dropped that, Coke. I don't know if it's right, but I really do think the Angels have the longest playoff drought in all of Major League Baseball right now. So will Rendon negotiate? What do you get in return? You get more money. You do it at a discount rate where if it's spread out over a certain number of years that you get an interest component. You get certain benefits, whatever they may be. Maybe he'll negotiate 100 hours on Artie Moreno's private plane. Whatever Rendon and his agent, and you can look up who his agent is, what they negotiate, would I do it? You bet your sweet bipsters. I want Anthony Rendon and his attitude and his lack of professionalism and his lack of care and his sucking the payroll out of Artie's vacuum-cleaned stadium. I want him gone. I don't want him associated with our team in any way. It's already a sunk cost. But are you at least now a little more comfortable with the fact that these long-term deals, which feel so freaking good when you sign them, you're so proud of what you did, and then it gets toward the end and you've been totally screwed? That's the Angels, folks. I like Luka. I do. I have Luka in a wait to see, Coca, that Luka's going to win a NBA championship before Trae Young. I have no idea why that's a wait to see, which you can find on davidsamsonpodcast.com, by the way. You can find a document that has all the wait to sees, all the picks of the day, all the words of the day. Today was self-righteous. All the things that we have are in a tracking document and a drag-down menu on davidsamsonpodcast.com. Go to the website, check it out. I do believe I have a wait to see about Luka. Luka is now a member of the Dodgers. Hello, 4869. Luka is now a member of the Lakers. And the Lakers did something this past weekend of great interest. It was the NBA Cup. You may recognize or remember what the NBA Emirates Cup is. It's the in-season tournament they have where the semis and the finals used to be in Vegas, and teams get to win the in-season tournament, like the Lakers, who won the inaugural tournament and then raised a banner. You may remember that. Last year, you may remember or not remember that the Milwaukee Bucks won the tournament. You may know that there are cup games that are played during the regular season. You don't know when they are, except you look in the box score, and it says NBA Cup game. You're not paying attention when all of a sudden the quarterfinals are set and the Bucks have been eliminated. You're not looking at the tiebreak rules. The one thing you are looking at is the basketball court. The NBA Cup courts. And Coca, I didn't come to you before the show, and I should have. If we could show the audience who's watching what some of these courts look like, how they get approved is beyond me aesthetically. Each court is uglier than the last. They're so distracting. They remind me, Coca, of a football team whose name I can't recall, who has an all crazy blue turf field. Boise State. Do they still have that, Coca? I don't know if they still do. It's so outrageous. The NBA Cup courts are just hard on the eyes. The way courts get approved is they are designed by the league. The league then sends examples of the look of the court to the teams, much like in baseball, the way it works. All the hats, when you have an owner or a team president who comes out and says, oh, I didn't realize our uniform was that, or our 4th of July hat was that, or Memorial Day hat was that, they're lying to you. We get a copy and we get approval over everything regarding our team. The NBA doesn't ship a court to the Lakers and the Lakers just say, oh, never saw that before. And before you do a uniform change or a court change and you go through the approval process, do you agree that one of the things you would do is test the court? Yeah, that seems in basketball important. Have you ever watched a basketball game where there is the ball boys and after Patrick Ewing is at the free throw line, who Patrick Ewing and Scott Olsen, that's an old Marlins reference for those of you who get it. If you know, you know, where the sweat is dripping from the chin while they're at the free throw line, or the sweat is dripping while you're on the mound, and you get the ball boys who go and mop up the court after the free throw when the ball's going the other way, and they're supposed to be looking up in case there's a fast break coming back their way. You've all seen it. If you haven't, you can now picture it. You're doing that because basketball courts can be very slippery when wet. And you do not want players to slip on a basketball court because that is how you blow an ankle. Now, it used to be back in my day that players wore what were called high-top sneakers. High-top sneakers give you ankle protection and in theory are supposed to help when you turn an ankle. A lot of basketball players wear mid-height and even low-height shoes now, which is just amazing. I'm very much a high-top wearer when I was playing basketball, all 65 inches of me. But one of the things that you also watch on a basketball court is before players go in the game, there is a mat at the table where you go and announce that you're coming back in the game and the referee waves you in. There's a mat that is in the middle where players wipe their sneakers in order to make sure that there's enough stick, in order to make sure that they're not going to slip. Well, the Lakers in their NBA Cup court had a problem. It was unplayable. Luka was so upset about the court that he complained about it publicly. He was embarrassed with the court. And the NBA looked at Luka and gave in. I couldn't believe it. The NBA allowed the Lakers to get rid of the NBA Cup court and to reinstall their regular court for a Cup game, thereby acknowledging that the court was bad, that there was an issue with the court. And it reminded me that when a court is laid down at a arena, it's like if you look at the parquet floor in Boston or look at any floor, it's laid down in sections. It's like laying brick, sort of, is how you get a basketball court. And in an arena where there's also hockey, you actually have the court that's over the ice. It's totally crazy, but totally cool. But in any case, laying down the court. What you do when you lay down the court is you've got your grounds crew, and the NBA is a grounds crew. They're just not called the grounds crew, but they're stadium operations. They are checking at the quality of the court. The court is not tested out for the first time after being laid down at a game. There is practice on the court. There is the testing of the court. There's the pregame shoot-around on the court. There are all sorts of ways to guarantee a court. What happened in LA? Did it pass every single test and then all of a sudden when the game started it became unplayable? Did Luka not think that the court was slippery and dangerous when he was warming up? He only discovered it Tuesday night when they were playing their NBA Cup game. I found that to be, it couldn't pass the smell test to me. Luka had to have known about the court prior to playing on the court. He had to have walked out to the court prior to playing on the court. The difference in playing on the court was the number of players. No, you can do a 5-on-5. The difference in the amount of sweating. No, we can test things. You know that we test drainage and we don't need rain to test drainage on our baseball fields. We can manufacture the wetness in order to test it, in order to look for the problem spots in the field. We do that. The NBA and its teams can pressure test the court too, but they didn't. And then LeBron came out and said, well, wait a minute. The court's totally fine. I don't even understand what we're talking about. But another one of the Laker players said, no, I actually agree with Luka. We did a morning shoot-around. The court was bad and slippery. None of this is right. If you do a morning shoot-around, which all teams do, and the court is unplayable, you would call the league because the Lakers had their court in stock, their original court. They didn't have to have it shipped from anywhere. It would be like a special uniform not working for a team and then saying, well, we got to wear them because we don't have any other uniforms. You've got all your other uniforms in the back room. If you've got like a basket or a rim in the NBA that is faulty, or people hang on the rim, it's now flexible, but in the old Daryl Dawkins days, if you hang on the rim, Dr. Dunkenstein, that may be Daryl Griffith. I can't remember what the nickname was to Daryl Dawkins, but you have backup backboards. You have backup rims. You have your court available. Why didn't they make the change? Is there an issue between LeBron and Luka? Is it manifesting itself not in the disagreement that's happening over the quality of a court? Is it happening over the way in which the Lakers are now not LeBron's team? Because coincidentally, what we saw come out after this whole Laker court situation, and you know me, I have a problem with coincidences because I just don't see them often. What came out is how LeBron is embracing the reality of being a complimentary piece. Well, if you know LeBron like I know LeBron, and there are people who know LeBron way better than I do, embracing being a complimentary piece. I'm going to go with no. We're going to do a show Wednesday, Coca. Yes, we are. No show tomorrow. We do have a show Wednesday. It's going to be a So You Want to Talk to Samson. Please get on your phone. In 18 minutes, get on your phone and call this number. 631-377-4869. It's on your screen right now, unless you're listening to this, and then it's just in your earbuds. 631-377-4869. Call, leave a message. Your voicemail may make our show Wednesday in the second hour. Your question may be a part of any show. You never know. Please, no 4-minute messages. If you can't get your question out in 30 seconds, practice. Rehearse. You can do it. 377-4869. Coke, I'm having a issue at the moment. Not like a, hi, I'm David Samson. No, I'm not having an issue like that. I'm not having an anxiety attack at the moment. No, I'm not distracted from what is going on in my life at this moment at all. Haven't been this entire show. Haven't been at all since September 12th. But something came up for this show that really is an interesting dilemma that I have, and I wanted to share it with you. And Coke is going to roll his eyes because it's not useful for social media, but it really is a issue I'm having. I want to talk about the Boston Red Sox right now. I want to talk about what's going on with that team and how it came out that they're willing to lose money. They're willing to go over the first competitive balance tax threshold, which is $244 million. They're willing to do that, but not much more. And John Henry has gotten a lot of negative attention for that, wanting to know why their payroll isn't higher, whether or not they're actually losing money. And you see Boston has a hospital there called Dana-Farber, and the Red Sox are very well connected to Dana-Farber, and there is a chance that at some point I will need Dana-Farber for whatever particular reason I may need it. And so what I'm fighting in myself is, part of my show is being honest about what's happening inside a front office or inside an ownership group. What do I do if I've got something to say about John Henry and running the Red Sox with Tom Werner, and that something could in any way would stop me from being able to provide any sort of help for my daughter? How do I do that? How do I respect the audience, respect the subject, at the same time do what I need to do, which for the most important role that I have, that I am failing at in such a way that I've got nightmares and stomach aches in keeping my family healthy? What do? Just skip it, right? Skip it. Why would you talk about the Red Sox? I don't know, Coca. I don't know. I can't do it, though. So, John, thank you. Tom, thank you. All of the Red Sox, Sam, Kennedy, all of the people who lead it, all of whom are good, decent people. But here's what you're fighting. You're fighting a perception that is Fenway Sports Group. You are fighting the perception of Red Sox fans that for whatever reason, you are spending money for other of your assets or not, just making money and distributing it. You are fighting the perception that Red Sox fans have an expectation that you will be Steve Cohn, that you will be the San Diego Padres, that you will have a payroll that is not reflected in your revenues, that you will run an irresponsible business. You trade for Sonny Gray and you take money from the Cardinals. You pay him $20 million to pitch for you. An outstanding move by Craig Breslow and the rest of the Red Sox. But when you do a move like that, then comes the questions. Then comes the conversations. Sean McAdam on Twitter was pretty clear. He just said, I hate the sound of the fact that anything beyond a small loss, there's a reluctance by the team to incur bigger deficits. And Sean McAdam said, I hate the sound of that. No reason they shouldn't be pushing up to $284 million payroll. As long as there's no draft penalty, spend the damn money. This is Sean McAdam, very well respected, giving you this. What do you do if you're the Red Sox? Well, I want to give you a peaceful exit to the Red Sox brass. But you have to have commented on that now. You can't wait. There are owners right now saying that they have not given the payroll to their GM. Hal Steinbrenner just did it last week. It made him sound like a buffoon. I don't know what the payroll is going to be. Really? You're the owner of the team. I can't even imagine running a team and the owner saying, oh, yeah, whatever the payroll you want. Yeah, just let me know. Let me know what it is at the end. Come to me with any deal you want. I already told you can't build a team that way. You have to let your baseball people build a team to the payroll that you've given them to make the best decisions. Forget it's secret money. It doesn't work. I mean, it worked one time in my career, and that's it. The Red Sox know what their payroll is going to be because they have guessed and they have projected what their revenues are going to be. When you have underestimated your revenues and you have overestimated your expenses, your operating income, your profit will be greater than projected. You then have an opportunity to take that money and reinvest it. You can reinvest it in your facilities. You can reinvest it in payroll. You can reinvest it in paying down debt. You can reinvest it however you want, but that is how profit happens. When you have underestimated how good your revenues will be, you've overestimated how big your expenses will be. The opposite is also true. If you have overestimated what your revenues will be and you have underestimated what your expenses will be, then you've got to have a plan for a capital infusion. You have to have a plan to pay for that possible eventuality. You have to either have credit access or you have to have owners who are willing to write checks to make up for the difference in the underestimated revenue and the overestimated and the underestimated expenses. You have to have a plan in place before a fiscal year starts. If the Red Sox are going to have a $284 million payroll, there has to be a set of projections done which shows that Fenway Park, along with broadcast revenue, along with whatever revenue sharing money they're paying out, along with whatever debt service they have, along with whatever repairs need to be done to Fenway, there has to be a financial statement which shows at $284 million, this is where we are and this is what we'll do. Why does that become something the Red Sox need to do? Because that's the CBT threshold that comes with only a financial penalty and not a draft penalty? I need to remind the Red Sox and Sean McAdam why these levels happened in the collective bargaining agreement, because it was for a very specific reason. It was to act as a salary cap. It was acknowledging that there are owners where money doesn't matter as much as draft picks because they have analytic GMs like an Andrew Friedman of the world who will tell you that building through the draft, having a pipeline of young players infused into your system each year, and then graduating players from your system to your big league team, that pipeline, regardless of your payroll, is the most important part of a winning team. What they won't tell you is that pipeline, there is generally no difference between the Dodgers pipeline and the Marlins pipeline. There's generally no difference in the rate at which players graduate to become big leaguers, which means they've had a cup of coffee or more on a major league team. There is no study that's ever been done which shows that large payroll, large market teams draft better than small payroll, small market teams, or that the opposite is true. There's been no way to further guarantee success in our system where you're drafting high schoolers. It's just never happened in my lifetime of baseball. What the Red Sox try to do is they try, like the Dodgers and like certain other teams, they try to be ahead of other teams analytically. They try to be ahead of other teams in their level of intelligence, thinking that they do things differently and better. When it turns out the Red Sox are just like 28 other teams. They are there for one particular purpose. They are there to win as much as they can in the most financially responsible way possible, and that's all they owe you. They don't owe you $284 million payroll at all. They don't owe you a World Series. And Coca gets upset with me about this, that fans are owed because fans don't care about the ownership money, as manifested by a member of the media. Fans don't care. They just want to win. Well, there's a lot of things I want in my life that I don't get. As a matter of fact, just look no further than the St. Louis Cardinals as an example of why the Red Sox need to be fiscally responsible. The St. Louis Cardinals are an organization that throughout my life has been, I've said this, the St. Louis Cardinal fans are the best fans in baseball. I have maintained that. Going into St. Louis to play was always extraordinarily special to me. The fact that everyone wears red is unbelievable and awesome. The fact that they sell out Busch Stadium every game was just unreal. It was like aspirational to me. I never thought it would change. Boy, has it ever changed. The St. Louis Cardinals, who haven't had a window of failure since I joined in 2000, the world of baseball, 1999. The St. Louis Cardinals right now are in the middle of that window of failure. How does that manifest itself? The most obvious way is with lower attendance, because that's what's normal. I always thought St. Louis was not normal. It turns out everyone's the same. Yes, the Yankees finished above 500 for as long as I can remember. Yes, the Dodgers are drawing 3 to 4 million fans every single year. Does anyone not remember a time when the Yankees couldn't draw fans? Does anyone not remember a time when Chavez Ravine was not close to sold out? Does anyone remember the reality when Madison Square Garden had the rafters wide open and wafting with pot smoke? Up, down, cycles. And I was silly enough to tell you that there are some teams that are not subject to the cycles, like the Dodgers and the Yankees. It turns out I'm wrong. Every team is. And the Cardinals cycle is something else. And it manifested itself. Ready for it? Have a seat. You're not going to believe this. The St. Louis Cardinals are receiving revenue sharing. I did not think I would say that statement. The St. Louis Cardinals, like Big Mac land, they're getting money. Does that not show you what the world of baseball is, what the world of business is? There was an article in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And it is true the Cardinals aren't going to get a lot of money. There are some teams that get like 20 grand, but they're right at the edge of revenue sharing. All 30 teams get ranked. And let's say the Marlins get 70 million, and let's say the Dodgers give 70 million, just rough numbers that aren't accurate. But then in the middle, you've got some teams that give, $50,000, and you've got some teams that get $20,000. So the range is incredible. But once you receive money, whether it's $1 or a gazillion dollars, you are considered a revenue-sharing payee. And that has significant implications within the collective bargaining agreement because St. Louis is a small market, believe it or not, no matter how it's acted for all these decades. And when you have a market size like St. Louis and you receive revenue sharing the way they are now, they are going to get certain benefits within the confines of the CBA. They're eligible for certain distributions of money from the commissioner. They're eligible for certain compensatory picks in the draft. There's a whole litany of things that happen that got clicked when the Cardinals became revenue-sharing payees. So, for example, they're now eligible for a top 6 pick in the upcoming draft because they are a payee. Why does all of this matter to me? Because as we head into this negotiation, this collective bargaining negotiation, which will undoubtedly end in a work stoppage, unfortunately, but don't panic, where you've got the large market teams thinking that they're a caucus, the small market teams trying to find if they can be a caucus. You've got the players who are making certain demands. You've got the commissioner stuck in the middle trying to keep the owners together. When you've got the Cardinals, who were always of the belief that they were immune from the cycle, it is a huge benefit to the commissioner that the Cardinals ownership, the DeWitts, now realize they're not with the large market hawks, the high payroll hawks. They're not with the teams that always seem to be on one side. The St. Louis Cardinals are now a team that is firmly on the other side. So when the Red Sox were finishing in last place in between winning World Series, John Henry never became a small market advocate because he was a large market with a high payroll regardless of where he finished in the standings and was always going to act that way. John Henry, when he owned the Marlins, only cared about small markets. When he bought the Red Sox, he only cared about big markets. That is normal. You care about where you are. Lane Kiffin is throwing out his Ole Miss shorts. But when you've got a team that has straddled both sides so close to a negotiation, it changes the entire dynamic of the perspective. Bill DeWitt walks into a negotiating session. Bill DeWitt walks into a conversation with an agent, walks into a conversation with the commissioner, puts together his plan for what he needs for his team in his self-interest, in his new CBA. And guess what he comes out with? He comes out with a possibility that benefits the small market teams. It's unbelievable, actually. We're going to follow this as we continue through these negotiations, where teams are. And given what happened to St. Louis right now, it is a huge benefit to the other small market teams. You just wait. Well, that's our show. We'll be back Wednesday. It's just business. We've learned that today. This is nothing personal.